knowing when to invest. So one of the hardest challenges facing entrepreneurs is deciding whether to invest in patents and trademarks before you start showing the product or testing whether there's a demand for it. So what if the market isn't there? So that's what it's easy to think about that. But then also think about what if you launch without protection only to find that it is a hit and now you don't have the protection that you need. So I'm hoping here you can get some helpful exercises and thought process here to help you get unstuck from this circle of doubt. So for one thing, it's always good to research the size of the market and do some back of the envelope calculations. So if you think about a 2%, like if 2% of the market buys the product, which is considered kind of an average to low, conservative response, how many units is that? And then multiply that by your price per unit. Or you can use if you know your cost to deliver, your COGS, you could use that number to get sort of an estimated gross profit per unit, and then times number of units. The resulting number is the potential revenue if you could deliver that many units, assuming you could actually fulfill all those sales. And that's, notice it's a 2% response, it's not necessarily saying it's like a big hit. But if you can deliver that many units over the course of a year, how would that affect your life? Think about how much revenue that is, and imagine yourself looking back on that in a year. Like, what does that do for your personal life? What does that do for your business? How does that elevate your brand? What kinds of opportunities might that open up for you personally and professionally? So I think it's important to put yourself in that future state and really imagine that, because it's really that if you're not thinking about what does success look like, then it's going to be, that is a potential that's real. And if you don't think about that, then you're likely to make decisions based on what you know now, and also listening to all the doubts and the people around you that are not entrepreneurs, that are understandably probably more nervous than you are about going forward with this. A lot of times that's spouses, for totally good reasons, including in my own family. My dad was the entrepreneur, my mom not so much. So just be aware of that, but really think about that future state, because that is a real potential. So next, think about there's what I call the gut check exercise. So now that you've got that in your mind, think about if you launch without any patent protection, for example, and a big company notices your success and notices you don't have any patents on it and comes out with its version of your invention. And then you start seeing that at chain stores all over the country. Number one, what does that feel like? Does that feel like a big gut punch? How does that affect you financially also? What does that do to sales for you? And how does that impact your plans for the future, both the company's plans and also your plans personally? So now, as you go down that road, imagine that the big company now announces it has applied for a patent on its innovative product, which is your invention. Think about what that feels like, because all of that is actually possible if you launch without protection and the product is a hit. That is not fantasy. That's not outside the realm of possibility. These are sort of realistic possibilities. So really, think about that future state where you want to be and the future state where you don't want to be, and be honest with yourself about that. Because if you go without protection and you end up in the future state that you don't want, which is a big company has come out with its own version and maybe applied for a patent, there is no way to fix that until you can invent a time machine. Then you can go back and make a different decision now. But that's really very much what, I'm here to help you and help business owners, avoid futures they don't want and end up in futures that they do want. No guarantees, except that if you do nothing, you're not going to end up with the barriers to protection that you need if your product is a hit. So here's another sort of set of scenarios to think about for trademarks, although it also is relevant to patents. So let's just look at this one. If you launch without any kind of trademark or patent protection, and the market gets flooded with knockoffs that look like yours and they have similar product names and logos, and you have no way to stop them, what does that do? Where will you be in a year? How will that affect you financially? What if the knockoffs don't work as promised or fall apart after a few uses, because that happens a lot? Then how does that affect you financially? And how does that affect the reputation of your company and of your product? So what does that do to your future sales? If you have investors, what does that do to your relationship with them? Including investors that we don't think of as investors, like family. So really think about that. So really what you're doing here is you're imagining your future without IP protection and comparing it with your future with IP protection, which is the best way I can think of to understand whether it's worth going through, investing and pursuing IP protection now. Because you can't do it retroactively. The time to do it is now, before you launch, for legal reasons and also just practical reasons. So if you have a patent or even patent pending, it greatly reduces the chances that a big competitor will launch with a competing product. And if you have a hit product and they notice it and they see patented or patent pending, they are motivated to then approach you and say, we're interested in licensing your patent or possibly acquiring you or acquiring your patent. But if they investigate and find that your product is not covered by any patents, then they'll know that they're free to copy it. And so will, by the way, all of the other potential competitors that want to sell a version of your product. There's nothing illegal about reverse engineering someone else's product. It's only if there's no patent on it, there's nothing illegal. There's no rights being violated, even though it feels like there are when you see that happen. So if you have a registered trademark and you find the market flooded with similarly named knockoffs, then you can use your registered trademark rights to remove the listings, have websites taken down, force them to rebrand. And ultimately, really with registered trademarks, unlike patents, with patents, if you don't have any protection, you don't have any protection. With registered trademarks, it's not like you have no protection without a registered trademark. You theoretically have trademark protection even if it's unregistered. But what the registered trademark does is save you tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees when you need to stop the infringers and the counterfeiters. So it also provides passive protection, stopping people from adopting similar brands even without you even knowing that it's happening. So this is getting a little bit long. I have more thoughts about this. Maybe I'll do another video, but I'll leave you with this. At the end of the day, all business involves risk. There is no profit without risk, as they say. And the way we deal with that is we make educated guesses about what might happen with or without protection, or with or without the decision you're trying to make, and then you weigh the pros and cons, and then also really just put numbers on what it is that you're risking, so that it's not if you're thinking about maybe the cost of all the IP you want for this year as an initial like $15,000. Just think about that and then compare that with maybe your estimated year one sales, if you do that 2%, or however many you think you can sell in that first year. And very often, I think if you actually look at the numbers, you'll see that even though 15,000 seems like a lot now, compared with the potential upside, of reaching that market and not having to compete at the lowest, with 1 million competitors or one giant, it's really not a large percentage of that potential. So I hope that helps. It's Catherine Cavella, IP Works Law. Let me know if you have other questions about IP. I always am looking to answer the questions that you have. Thanks so much. Take care.